The Georgia night air was thick with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin and made every breath feel heavy. The cicadas hummed in the trees, a natural soundtrack to the quiet country road that stretched for miles under the pale light of the moon. Jasmine Carter gripped her steering wheel a little tighter than usual, her knuckles whitening as her headlights carved a path through the dark. She had grown up in Atlanta, but 3 years ago she and her husband Marcus had moved to a quiet rural town 2 hours south. They'd wanted peace away from the chaos, away from city crime. Marcus, a man who'd seen more blood and battlefields than most could imagine, needed stillness. And Jasmine wanted to give it to him. Tonight, though, stillness was nowhere to be found. Jasmine had been returning from her sister's baby shower, her car full of half-empty Tupperware containers and pastel decorations she'd promised to bring back home. She smiled faintly, thinking about her sister's glowing face, but that smile faltered as the gas gauge dipped toward empty. She cursed softly under her breath. "Should have filled up in town, Jas," she muttered to herself. The next gas station was at least 15 miles down this dark stretch of road, and the thought of her car sputtering out here made her stomach tighten. That's when she noticed it. A truck. Big, lifted, its headlights flaring bright in her rearview mirror. It had come out of nowhere, or maybe she hadn't noticed it until now. Either way, its presence made her skin prickle. She slowed down a bit, hoping it would pass. But it didn't. The truck stayed glued to her bumper, its lights flooding her little Honda Civic's cabin, making it impossible to see anything clearly in her mirror. "Okay, this is not funny," she whispered. The road was too narrow for her to see. Pull off comfortably, but instinct told her not to stop. She pressed on the gas, trying to put some space between them, thought the truck matched her. Her heart began to race. Then, without warning, the truck's horn blared long, guttural, aggressive. Jasmine jumped, her hands shaking on the wheel. "Lord, please," she whispered. Up ahead, she saw what looked like another set of headlights, dim and slow, coming toward her. Relief washed over her for a split second. Maybe another driver would deter whoever was behind her. But as the oncoming vehicle drew closer, she realized it wasn't just one car. It was another truck. And it wasn't moving to the side of the road, it was blocking it. Her chest seized. 2 trucks now. The first one hit its brights, nearly blinding her. The second swerved across both lanes, stopping her path completely. Jasmine slammed her brakes, her car screeching as it fishtailed to a halt. "God, no, no, no." Doors swung open, boots hit gravel. Shadows emerged, 3 men from the truck ahead, 2 from behind. 5 in total, all dressed in jeans, dusty boots, ball caps pulled low. She could make out the smirks on their faces even. From inside her car, every instinct screamed at her to lock the doors and call Marcus. She fumbled with her phone, her trembling hands barely gripping it, but one of the men was already at her door. He yanked it open before she could hit the lock. "Evenin', sweetheart," he drawled, his breath thick with tobacco. His grip was rough as he reached for her arm. "Get off me!" Jasmine shouted, jerking away, but another man was already pulling her out from the other side. Her phone slipped from her grasp, falling onto the dirt road. Her feet hit the ground hard, her heels snapping in the gravel. She tried to twist, to pull free, but the grip on her arms was iron. "You lost, darlin'?" Another man sneered, his accent sharp, his smile cruel. "Please," Jasmine gasped, her voice cracking. "Please, I don't want any trouble. I'm just trying to get home." The leader stepped forward then, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a scar running across his cheek. He looked her up and down slowly, like a predator eyeing prey. "See, that's the problem," he said. "You wandered into the wrong road, honey, and around here, we don't take kindly to strangers." His buddies chuckled darkly. Jasmine's breath came in shallow bursts. Fear coiled in her chest, but underneath it burned something else, anger. "You don't get to touch me," she spat, her voice trembling but fierce. You let me go right now, or what? The scarred man interrupted, stepping closer. What? You gonna do? You ain't in Atlanta anymore. Out here, ain't nobody gonna hear you scream. He signaled with his head, and two of the men dragged her toward the tree line. Her heels caught on roots and dirt as they pulled her into the woods, her nails clawing at their arms, but it was useless. Stop it, let me go. Jasmine cried, kicking wildly. They laughed at her struggles. One of them pulled a coil of rope from his pocket, and dread hit her like ice. No, please. They shoved her against a tree, the bark digging into her back as they looped the rope around her wrists, pulling tight until she winced in pain. Her heart thundered in her chest. Tears blurred her vision as the scarred man leaned in close, his eyes cold. Ain't nobody coming for you, he said. But he was wrong, because even in her panic, Jasmine remembered the one thing Marcus had drilled into her before every deployment, every time he left her at home. If something happens, you call me. No matter what. Always. Her phone. Her eyes darted to the ground where it had fallen, just a few feet away. The screen cracked, but still glowing. One of the men had kicked it aside without realizing. Her hands trembled against the ropes as the men jeered and argued over her. She drew in a shaky breath, closed her eyes for just a second, and whispered in her mind, Marcus, please. Please hear me. When the men turned their attention elsewhere for a split second, one lighting a cigarette, another tossing a beer can, Jasmine shifted, her fingers stretching, straining. Her fingertips brushed the phone. It slid closer. She prayed silently, her tears wetting the bark at her back. Her nails scraped until she finally hooked it. Somehow she pressed the side button. Siri's voice chimed faintly. Call Marcus, she whispered hoarsely. The scarred man turned his head. What did you say? Jasmine froze. The phone buzzed faintly in her palm. Then she heard it. One ring, then two. And then, Jas? Marcus's voice, low, rough, but clear. Her chest almost broke open with relief. Marcus, she gasped, barely able to form words. Help me, they've got me. The phone was ripped from her grasp, a boot stomping down on it until the screen went black. But it was too late. Marcus had heard. And Marcus was not a man you crossed. Marcus Carter sat in his small, dimly lit living room, the glow of the muted TV flickering across his face. His military duffel sat half-packed near the couch. He was due to fly out in 2 days for another training rotation. When his phone buzzed, he picked it up without hesitation. He never ignored Jasmine's calls. The moment he heard her voice, ragged, terrified, every part of him snapped to focus. Jas? Baby, talk to me. Where are you? The line went dead. Marcus's jaw clenched. The Delta Force instincts he'd tried so hard to bury in civilian life roared back to life. He wasn't just hearing fear in her voice, he was hearing danger. Real, immediate, and brutal. He rose from the couch, every motion precise. He moved to the bedroom, yanked open the lockbox under the bed. Inside, his Glock 19 rested beside a combat knife and a burner phone he hadn't touched in months. He checked the magazine, loaded, safety on, slid it into his holster. His heart pounded, but his mind was sharp. Whoever had touched his wife didn't understand what line they'd just crossed. Marcus pulled out his keys, strode to his truck, and started the engine. The cicadas still hummed in the trees. But the night felt different now, charged. The wolves had come out to hunt Jasmine, but they had no idea that a lion was coming for them. The men around Jasmine were laughing now, tossing crude jokes back and forth as she struggled against the ropes. Fear wrapped itself around her chest, but beneath it, her hope clung to one truth. Marcus had heard. He was coming. She didn't know how or when, but she believed it with everything in her. And that belief, small as it was, kept her breathing, even as the night pressed in darker than ever. The men hadn't stopped laughing since they tied her. Their boots crunched against the dead leaves as they paced, as if her fear was just another evening's entertainment. Jasmine pressed her back against the bark, wincing with every movement. The rope cutting into her skin. Her wrists throbbed, but she refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry harder. Her tears had dried into streaks across her cheeks, her chest rising and falling with stubborn breaths. The scarred man crouched low, bringing his face inches from hers. His breath was sour, his smile venomous. "You got fire, girl," he said, his ease. "Drawl thick. I like that. Gonna make breaking you down that much sweeter." Jasmine's eyes flared with rage. She spat in his face. He froze, his buddies howling with laughter, but his own smile evaporated. Slowly, he wiped his cheek with the back of his hand, his eyes turning to ice. "You just signed your death warrant," he muttered. Dottie pulled a knife from his belt, the blade glinting in the moonlight. Jasmine's heart stuttered, but she held his gaze, refusing to look away. If this was the end, she wouldn't let him see her break. But the scarred man paused as one of his crew called out. "Hey, boss." The voice was uneasy, a hint of nerves. Cutting through their bravado. "That truck. You see them headlights?" The leader turned his head, scowling. Far off down the dirt road, a single pair of headlights was growing brighter. The sound of an engine rumbled low in the distance. Jasmine's chest leapt. She knew that sound. She knew it like she knew the rhythm of her own heartbeat. Marcus's truck. The men stiffened, exchanging glances. The scarred man cursed under his breath. "Relax," he barked. "Probably just some local driven through. We'll deal with it." But his tone betrayed the sliver of doubt worming into him. Jasmine's pulse raced. She pressed her lips together, fighting the urge to cry out. She couldn't give Marcus away, not yet. The headlights grew closer, slowing as the vehicle approached the trucks blocking the road. The men moved quickly, grabbing bats and chains, posturing like a pack of wolves bracing for a fight. The scarred man motioned two of them forward. "Go handle it. Tell whoever it is to turn around." Jasmine watched, her chest burning with hope, as Marcus's black F-150 came into full view. The truck stopped just short of the blockade. Its engine idled low, steady. The driver's door opened. Marcus stepped out, even from the shadows. Jasmine could see the shift in him, the stillness in his shoulders, the deliberate way he scanned the scene. He wasn't walking into this blind. He was calculating, every muscle ready, his dark eyes locked on the threat. Her husband wasn't just a man. He was a soldier, a Delta operator. A predator trained to move in silence and strike with precision. And God help the men who thought they could touch his wife. One of the gang members swaggered forward, spinning his bat like it was some show of strength. "This road's closed, buddy," he called out. "Turn your ass around and head back where you came from." Marcus didn't flinch. His voice carried calm, deep, steady. "My wife, where is she?" Jasmine's heart cracked open at the sound of his voice. Firm, cold, deadly. The men glanced at one another, then burst out laughing. "Your wife?" one of them snorted. "Hell, we didn't know she was taken. Pretty little thing out here all alone. We figured she was..." He didn't finish that. Marcus moved. 1 second. The man was grinning. The next, Marcus was on him, closing the distance in a blur, his fist connecting with the man's jaw with a crack that echoed through the trees. The thug hit the dirt hard, his bat rolling uselessly into the brush. The others froze. Marcus straightened, his stance wide, his fists loose. At his sides, his eyes burned into the scarred leader. "Untie her," he said. His voice was low, lethal. "Now." The scarred man sneered, masking his unease. "You think you're tough, huh? This is 5-on-1. You really wanna..." He didn't finish that either. Marcus's hand dipped to his hip, pulling the Glock from his holster. The metallic click of the safety flicking off silenced every laugh, every smirk. The men froze, their bravado collapsing under the weight of that barrel. "Last chance," Marcus said, his tone flat, unwavering. "Untie her, or I start dropping bodies." The Scarred man hesitated, his knife twitching in his grip. His eyes flicked to Marcus's, and for the first time, his cocky facade cracked. He was staring into the eyes of a man who didn't bluff. Jasmine could barely breathe. Relief swelled in her chest, mingled with terror. Knowing this standoff could explode in an instant, the scarred man raised his chin, forcing a smirk back onto his face. "You don't scare me," he spat. "You ain't gonna shoot. Not in the middle of nowhere. Cops'll find." A single gunshot split the night. The bullet hit the ground inches from his boot, spraying dirt against his jeans. The scarred man flinched, his smirk vanishing. Marcus didn't blink. He shifted the barrel up, steady, aimed dead. At the man's chest. "Try me," he said. For a long, tense moment, nobody moved. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, reluctantly, the scarred man lifted his knife toward Jasmine's ropes. His hands trembled as he cut through the binds, the blade sawing until the rope fell loose. Jasmine stumbled forward, her arms numb, her skin raw where the rope had dug in. Marcus was already there, sliding an arm around her shoulders, pulling her against his chest. "You okay?" His voice was softer now, urgent but tender. Her body shook, but she nodded, burying her face against him. "I knew you'd come," she whispered, tears spilling again. He kissed the top of her head, his jaw tight. "Always." The scarred man's crew shifted nervously, uncertain whether to run or fight. Marcus's Glock never wavered, tracking their every move. "You got two choices," he said, his voice like steel. "Drop your weapons and walk away. Or you test me, and I put you in the ground right here." Nobody laughed this time. One by one, the bats and chains hit the dirt. The men backed away, their tough guy masks slipping into fear. But Marcus didn't lower his gun. He watched them retreat until they reached their trucks. His eyes stayed cold, calculating every angle, every threat. Only when the engines roared to life and the trucks peeled away down the dirt road did Marcus finally exhale. He holstered the Glock, turning back to Jasmine, his hands cupping her face. Gently, her lip quivered as she looked up at him. "Marcus." "If you hadn't." He shook his head, cutting her off. "Don't. They'll never touch you again. Not while I'm breathing." She melted into him, her body trembling with the aftershock of adrenaline. He held her close, rocking her gently, the cicadas buzzing once more in the trees as though nothing had happened. But Marcus's eyes stayed locked on the darkness beyond the trees, his instincts thrumming, because he knew this wasn't over. The look in that scarred man's eyes hadn't been fear. Not fully. It was something else, something dangerous. The night air was heavy as Marcus loaded Jasmine into his truck, wrapping his jacket around her shoulders. She sat in silence, her eyes distant, staring out the window as the road stretched away behind them. He kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting over hers, grounding her. "You're safe now," he murmured, but deep down, he knew safety was fragile. Men like the ones they'd just faced didn't lick their wounds and forget. They came back stronger, meaner, more reckless. And if they thought tonight was the end, they were dead wrong. For Marcus Carter, tonight was just the beginning.